Big fluff.
No one is getting in here, Steven. You designed it, remember? Reinforced doors, no entry without the code.
Dad, David's got the code.
It all could have been different, Mr. Walker. You should have allowed nature to take its course. In the end, it will anyway. So let me in the fucking house!
Hey everybody, I'm Joel Murphy.
And I'm Andy McIntyre.
And this is Silver Linings Playback, the podcast where we watch maligned movies and we find their silver linings.
And it's the end of February, and we are finally wrapping up this painful look at creepy stalker movies. But joy is on the way because we have an amazing guest to discuss this week's final installment, the movie Fear, starring Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon. And here to talk about it, friend of the show, Zack Snyder expert extraordinaire, Ted.
Hello, it's me, Ted.
Hello, Ted.
I'm excited to talk about this movie with you. Before we started recording, I mentioned I was confused about why it was included on your podcast because it is, in fact, a good movie. So I'm looking forward to discussing.
And I'll echo what I said to you then, which is I've never been less surprised that a movie is on this show. But I'm excited to talk to you about it. But yeah, we're watching the movie Fear, which I think we're all about the same age. And I think this movie, it's fair to say, is infamous if you are our age.
You're a little older than me, but yes, okay. I'm familiar. Yeah.
Well, sorry to group you in with me and Andy.
Yeah, sorry, we're no Gen X millennial cuspers, and you're squarely millennial.
Yes. Just millennial.
But yeah, so obviously we all, well, Andy and I, and then years later you, all saw this movie.
Exactly.
And yeah, I just always feel like this was just like in the culture, this was, we all knew this is like the movie with creepy Mark Wahlberg. That was probably a lot of people's introduction to Mark Wahlberg, the actor.
I was gonna say the actor, because I go way back with the Funky Bunch.
Well, obviously. Yeah, of course.
I mean, who can forget Funky Bunch stalwarts like Hector the Booty Inspector, which is a real name of a member of the Funky Bunch.
Mm-hmm. And a real job that he had. That was actually what he was on the payroll for.
He was the Funky Bunch's resident booty inspector.
Mm-hmm.
You do. It's a trade.
You have to apprentice for that kind of.
Yeah, you have to start at the bottom and then work your way up.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, that's it. We're done. But yeah, so this is again all the movies this month have been about a person who's going and living their life. And then they meet someone else who has some kind of interest in them. And then that person is terrifying in various ways. A lot of times the same way, but there's been degrees of how they've acted. And that person proceeds to ruin their life. And this is no exception. We should have
watched Cable
Guy. Oh, man. Yeah.
Next year, yeah. Oh, we should definitely. I love Cable Guy. I will defend that movie, I think, the way that Ted will defend Fear.
Also not surprised that we could do it on this show.
Oh, no, I'm not surprised. But I will defend Cable Guy up and down. Sure. But we're here to talk about Fear. And yeah, it's this might have been Mark Wahlberg's first feature. I think maybe Basketball Diaries came first.
It did come first, and I know that. Oh no, my camera just went out, but that's okay. I'll fix it. It did come first, and I know that because I looked it up on Wikipedia, and Leonardo DiCaprio was initially considered for the role, but he suggested Marky Mark because they were together. the best.
No thanks, but I know a guy who's perfect for this.
It's like, I know a guy who can seemingly play unhinged and will commit acts of violence at the drop of a hat. My friend Mark.
Which, if you go on Mark Wahlberg's Wikipedia and read about what he was up to before he was famous, that tracks.
Yeah,
so
that's all there.
Okay, so but this obviously follows the pattern. It's Reese Witherspoon, and she also Alyssa Milano is in this movie, which I didn't remember, and I know Andy, you didn't remember. Yes,
I don't know how.
Go ahead.
Now I'm not going to say I've seen this movie a bunch, but I've seen it definitely a couple times when it came out, and obviously just recently. But I completely forgot that Alyssa Milano played Reese Witherspoon's bad influence in quotation marks best friend.
Yeah, I want to talk a lot about this character as we go on, but yeah, she's her friend who at the beginning of the movie convinces her to skip school to go to a pool hall for lunch, I think, in Seattle, where this is set in the 90s. And
this is extremely set in Seattle.
It's so set in Seattle that this same Bush needle drop happens twice in the movie. That's
though Bush not a Seattle band, they just copied all of the Seattle bands.
I mean, look, it's still grunge.
It's
adjacent.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is very much grunge.
Yeah. So I did appreciate the come down. Not once but twice on the car stereo. As Mark
and they also do Wild Horses twice.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
By the Sundays, not by the Rolling Stones, which is a great cover, but we can save all that for later.
But yeah, so she goes to this pool hall, I guess, for lunch where Wahlberg and his degenerate buddy,
like adult 45-year-old friend.
Yeah, 45-year-old friend. Yeah, who lives in a flop house with him. It's not even it's his dad's house. Like, there's a part where he comes and he's like, when your dad comes back, we're all out of here. It's like, not even this 45-year-old gross man's house. It's his dad's house. He didn't tell them that he stuck his dad in a retirement home. That's why his dad is not around. But yeah, this old man that he hangs out with, who Alyssa Milano immediately starts talking to as they're waiting for their lunch order, and then they get invited to a show that night, and because William Petersen, who's her father, is a workaholic, I guess. I think that's the moral of this movie, is if you care too much about your job, your family's in trouble. But he has to cancel going to a concert that the family was supposed to go to, which frees her up to instead go to this party where Marky Mark and his 50-year-old friend are hanging out.
Yes, are chilling.
And apparently have access to the roof. They can apparently just go.
There's a helicopter in this movie, everyone. Yeah. There is absolutely no reason for it.
There's also, by the way, because before we move on too much, nothing ever comes of this, but there seems to be an illusion that Reese Witherspoon's character has the Mary Lou Henner perfect recall memory thing, because when she's talking to William Petersen about the concert, which can either of you remind me who is it? James Taylor. Thank you. They're supposed to go see James Taylor, and she says, "I already saw James Taylor with you and Mom, because her parents are divorced, when I was 6 years old." And he's like, "You remember that?" And she says, "I remember everything."
Oh.
And then that's never addressed again. But it seems to imply that she has perfect recall memory of every day of her life.
That's unsettling in and of itself.
Yes. It's more unsettling that it's unaddressed. It's just sort of introduced. Because I noted that and I was like, is that going to come back? That she's going to remember some obscure detail that I've forgotten in this movie? But because I do not have that.
To be fair, if you see James Taylor, it makes an indelible mark on you. It's an experience.
Every 6-year-old.
Fire and Rain always brings a tear to my eye.
Joel, I support your theory, but I'm going to have to burst your bubble a little bit. Okay. I do think it's because I think that her dad cheated on her mom with this younger lady. And that's why she was like, I remember everything, Dad.
I got you.
You cheater.
Yeah.
But I prefer your interpretation, to be honest.
Okay.
And both can be true.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't contradict each other.
Exactly. So I'm going to go with both are true.
Also, the younger woman that he is now, that he left her mom for, cheated on the mom with this woman, is Amy Brenneman. Just wild in and of itself.
And she seems like she's been 40 for 20 years.
Yes.
Like, I know she wasn't 40 in that movie, but like she looks 40, and then she like looks
and
40
still looks 40.
Yeah. It's like she hit that age and stayed that age. But it also was distracting to me because they were in Seattle and it was Amy Brenneman. So I just kept thinking of Frasier when she like dated Frasier in one of the best episodes. I think it's called Merry Christmas, Miss Moskowitz, but it's like the whole, like her and her mom are Jewish and Frasier's pretending to be Jewish so as not to tip off the mom. And it's a classic farce. Yeah.
Yeah, truly.
Andy,
wait, so you're saying that there was mistaken
believe
identities?
Andy, would you believe that at one point Niles is dressed like Jesus Christ and he walks in to Frasier's apartment when they're trying to hide the fact that they're Christian?
Impossible.
Yeah. Anyway, so she's this is like they're both together now, and then she has a kid that's like a half sibling to Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah,
younger.
I think it seems like Amy Brenneman and William Petersen have a child together.
No, they don't. No, it's not his kid because he says in the beginning, your dad must be really proud of you about something that the kid. Yeah, so it is actually made clear that like
this is like a true 90s blended family.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I clocked that like, so he's not the son's dad and Reese Witherspoon is not Amy Brenneman's daughter, that they both have other parents.
Well, either way, she looks great for having a kid. Who's ever dad.
Yeah, no,
That's
she's
true.
Killing it.
Although she does
Marky Mark thinks so too.
Yes. Yeah, Marky Mark thinks so too. But she also does immediately early in this movie just call Reese Witherspoon a whore. Like she calls her a slut because of how
she does.
Yeah.
But that's like another thing that then there's other points where it seems like they have a perfectly fine and healthy relationship.
Yeah. Once everything starts going bad, she really steps up.
I think that was just the 90s though, that you're like, maybe you just called your stepdaughter a slut and nobody batted an eye.
That's true.
Also, wait, can I pause to say something serious for a moment?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We're talking about a movie about like teen dating violence, and we're all going to talk about how awesome this movie is in a second. Like, teen dating violence is not awesome. And if you are experiencing violence or you know somebody who's experiencing violence, you should tell them you love them, you're concerned about them, you want them safe and happy, and that there are lots of people out there who would help them, many resources for people experiencing that kind of thing. But this movie does rule, so we will continue to talk about it. Sorry.
No, but I think that is worth saying. And there's a lot in this movie. I think it's fair at this point, before we start talking about things that we enjoy about it, to just say, like, there's a lot of reasons to not watch this movie if that is the kind of thing that you don't want to see. It's also, if you're someone who visits the website, which I recommend, the Does the Dog Die? You might want to go there before watching this movie.
The trigger warning list for this movie is pretty extensive.
Yeah, there's a lot of violence. A lot of it is upsetting.
There's a lot of like intimate partner violence. There's a lot of just unhealthy behavior. And that said, it is a wild 90s ride.
Well, and then the whole thing, so it kind of has the whole, this, at first he's idyllic. He's the sweetest guy ever. He's a perfect boyfriend. And then he has this incident where he explodes into violence and he attacks her friend outside of school. And then it turns out that he, is quite terrible. But then the movie ends. We get from there, and somewhat organically, I would say, from there to the end of the movie is him and his friends showing up to do a home invasion.
Yeah, they're strangersing the main character family.
Yeah, and it's just a horror
without
movie.
The masks.
Like, it's 100% just a horror movie about a smart home that they have
like
infiltrated.
A home invasion movie,
Yeah. But they have the code to the door. All these security measures that William Petersen put in are just not holding up.
Can I pause for a silver lining?
Sure.
So, like, I will say that this movie does a great job of showing and not telling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the beginning of the movie, like it's the dad jogging, and he jogs by like the security guard for their like home neighborhood. It's like he has a dog. Like he really does set up that he has a lot of home security, and to your point, an organic way that isn't just like, oh, honey, did you set the millions of security traps that we have? No, I forgot. Like,
no, it does a good job of foreshadowing.
interaction. Yes,
Yeah, no, and I think with all of that, like the dog is introduced early on, and like sort of the idea that this dog might be for protection, and that the son has an attachment to it. All of the family dynamics are introduced in the opening scene, like kind of organically and quickly. I think it does introduce a lot of information.
But he's a fucking creepy lech. Like her dad, like
is straight ogling Alyssa Milano.
Yes.
And also Reese Witherspoon. Like in the first scene when she comes downstairs and he's like, isn't that what you wore when you were 12?
Yeah, he
like,
does have a very weird scene about talking about how she's dressed. Yes.
I do think it's supposed to, like, because this whole movie, I feel like, is like some sort of overprotective dad's like wet dream. So I do think it's supposed to be like showing that, like, oh, he notices that she's dressed sexy and she shouldn't be dressed sexy, but it really does come off as though he's checking her out in a weird way.
Yes. Yeah. No.
And then he does ogle Milano for it.
Yeah, well, he's just creepy with Alyssa Milano, who, again, like with the scene in the pool hall, Alyssa Milano has a upsetting family dynamic at home. Her mom is not around and is constantly in search of like sugar daddies. It seems like she goes off to meet up with a guy in a hotel, and she seems to spend most of her time like, approaching and trying to flirt with older men, like her friend's dad, like this guy in the pool hall. That seems like her dynamic, which I had that watching this movie where this time, and now that I'm older and I'm going and watching it, where I'm like, I'm really concerned about her, because she, like, Reese Witherspoon ultimately like has a family system and has people worrying about her. And I think Margot is the name of the other character. Like nobody is looking out for Margot, who is also entangled with this group, also experiencing all the same violence. Like she's in just
Gary is dead. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, she's the one who has that knowledge and has to tell Reese Witherspoon, like, she's not doing okay, but like nobody's
also an
really
implicit
concerned.
drug problem.
Yes.
Like you are 17 and smoking crack with a 50-year-old man. And like, it's truly they really do, communicate that she's in a troubled family situation.
But nobody's like really helping her out. And even like this family that is the more, I guess, idyllic family, they're like, she's there with them, but they're not like, hey, anytime you want to crash here, come over. Like they're not concerned enough.
It's not a Sean Hunter situation.
Yeah.
It's not even a Rayanne Graff situation from My So-Called Life.
That is her character type for sure.
Yeah, she is the spiritual inspiration for Rayanne Graff from My So-Called Life.
Well, I do want to talk about, because I think you nailed it, that this is definitely like a fantasy for this kind of dad, of like, because he's presented as like,
he clocks Marky Mark immediately.
Yeah, and there's also just like this kind of, he's the, I'm going to put in quotes, but hero at the end, and he springs into action. And I definitely think all of that's present and intentional and meant to be there. But I want to talk about it with both of you, because I think a lot of he's to blame for the end scene, because he really puffs out his chest, and he really thinks that he can like intimidate Mark Wahlberg and back him off, and overestimates his own strength and how scary he is. And he goes to their house and trashes it and doesn't think to change the code.
There'll be any consequences.
He doesn't think there's be any consequences. He thinks they'll back down. He doesn't change the code on his door, thinking his daughter might have given it to the guy that she was dating, who was like in his pool 10 minutes ago. Like he's not taking this threat seriously. He's escalating it. Like he's making everything worse. So I think we have to talk about that. Like he's a problem in this movie. Yeah. And also William Petersen's playing him, so he seems unhinged.
Here's a question. So like, obviously, again, to emphasize I'm significantly younger than everyone on the show right now. But when I saw this movie probably came out when I was like 10 or 11. And then obviously I've seen it many times in the interceding 10 years. Yes, I'm old. No, in the last 30 years.
Ugh.
And it's wild to be younger than everyone in that movie, and now I am older than everyone in that movie.
Right.
And you're talking about this dad being a problem, and here's my question for both of you. You're both probably older than the dad in this movie is.
Ouch.
Now, would you fight a group of teenage boys?
Yes.
Okay, but you're routinely fighting a group of teenage boys.
If people don't know, Andy is in a fight club with exclusively teenage boys. So that's we haven't really talked about it on the show, but that's part of his
that's
whole...
the first rule is you're not supposed to talk about it.
It's part of Mackin' with Andy Mac. He got super into MMA and he's just constantly fighting 17-year-old boys.
He's always talking about how we need a more masculine culture.
Yeah, and then he's trying
the feminization of the world is what's the problem with everything. Yeah, those are my core beliefs.
Yeah, and then it's always that followed up with telling me I need supplements. I don't know why, but it's just immediately.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying you have low T. I'm just saying it could be higher.
You don't have maximally high T. Unlike the dad in this movie who's ready to fucking fight a 50-year-old man, his 2 teen henchmen, and a drummer. A drummer who everyone is carrying his drumsticks around his house casually the entire movie.
Yeah. No, obviously I wouldn't fight them. I would just frame Mark Wahlberg for a crime and get him arrested. I would be smarter than him and just get him off the board somehow,
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. I'd fight him.
Fair.
I'd get Andy to fight him.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Then I'd get shot like the security guard.
So when we were watching it, my spouse is not a white man, and when the dad came up and punched the 50-year-old man and then yelled at Marky Mark with the security guard there, he was like, the confidence of a white man, and then immediately the security guard gets shot. I was like, yeah, you were right. You were right to judge that man.
It is funny that I thought the security guard was gonna they had a second where they teased that he might be heroic, and then he immediately is just shot in the back. He gets about 5 seconds of
he immediately gets Dick Halloran.
Yeah.
Or groundskeeper Willie, for those of you that only have seen the Simpsons episode.
Although I give it to the security guard because he didn't have to go as far. I think that's the worst part about Dick Halloran is how much travel he did.
He
to
goes
get
from
axed.
Miami, Florida to Loveland Pass, Colorado.
He was
and
in
then
that
he got on
sick...
a little snowcat.
Yeah. Yeah, he had to rent heavy machinery to get there. He was in a sweet ass bachelor pad with that amazing artwork. Just chilling. I love his apartment so much.
It's great.
Truly a hope for him.
Yeah, and I feel so bad for him every time that
it's true.
I would be so mad. If anyone is going to attack me with an axe, don't make me fly across the country to
You're coming
do
at
it.
Me.
Yeah, come to me with that axe.
Yeah, if you're gonna axe me in the back, don't make me travel.
Yeah, that's just not fair. I'm tall. I would have been sitting in those airplane seats, hunched over.
You would have probably had to pay for Economy Plus for that extra 6 inches of leg room.
Yeah,
So Joel, I did want to go back to something you said though, that it relatively organically ramps up. I would agree with you for the most part. He kills Gary very quickly, though. It's not, he doesn't
he attacks Gary out of nowhere. There's no hint that he's unhinged.
No.
And then he beats the ever living crap out of Gary.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would also like to say that Gary seemingly is not gay and seemingly is not interested in Reese Witherspoon. So it is really nice that there's I don't know, a platonic friendship that seems like a safe male-female dynamic for her. And then,
Well,
Wahlberg.
if IMDb is to be believed, that Gary was written as gay, but then they left all of it out of the movie.
Honestly, you can see that, and I was wondering that the whole time. But I was like, it's not in there, so I'll compliment it.
And then Mark Wahlberg found out he got to beat up a gay character and that's why he signed on. Does that count as slander if it's true?
I don't think I don't think Mark Wahlberg would want to sue you and have Discovery, because I don't know if people know this, but if you look on Mark Wahlberg's Wikipedia and look at what he was up to before he was famous, there's some not great stuff there. I'm just so like that would be, you'd have to somehow damage his character to have slandered him.
It doesn't have to prove it's not
all right,
true.
then I feel better about myself. I'm good.
Yeah, so he kills Mark, or he kills Gary Swift, and after Gary dies, then it's just like, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, and he snaps his neck just like in like a really because he beats him up, and that's terrible. But he does just kill him unnecessarily in the woods.
Well, and that's one of this movie is shockingly consistent, and that's one of the big mistakes is that. When Alyssa Milano reports to Reese Witherspoon about Gary's death, is that he was like beaten to death when he wasn't. He just had his neck snapped in one fell swoop. That's one of the only inconsistencies to that degree in this movie, which I thought was weird. But
well, and this movie is funny. And again, we've watched like 4 movies that all kind of play with these types of things, and it's weird that I'm not even saying it's unbelievable because, cops are like this and our legal system is like this, but like, it's weird that everyone's like, well, there's not enough to take him in, when I don't think that it's not like a chess match. Like Wahlberg is not like somehow playing this so well that you just can't pin him down. Like if anyone watched him, Petersen, who has money, if he hired a private investigator to follow this kid for like 2 days, he'd probably have more than enough on him. Well,
there are dozens of witnesses to him beating the hell out of Gary the first time,
which he did at a school, in front of the
that he
entire
doesn't
school.
Attend.
Yeah, and then he goes back. Honestly, he could be arrested for that because he goes back to the school that he does not attend to try to intimidate all of them again.
To apologize and say, "Yeah, I'm just so sorry. I didn't mean it."
He sexually assaulted Alyssa Milano.
Right.
Yeah, he did that too.
Like, he's broken a lot of law. Like, very clear violations of the law continue to happen.
Right. Yeah, and it's not like he's the entire premise of the movie, and what it's really putting a lot of weight into is that when you first meet him, he's very polite. That's like his only move.
It really is. It's because he's weird as hell.
Yeah.
But other than that,
he is a charmer. Like he flatters.
He is a flatterer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's.
Like, I happened to work in a nursery for like a summer or two. I could help you plant those trees, Amy Brenneman. Yeah, I could do it.
It's weird to me that she didn't see, because again, here, as someone who grew up being sexually pursued by men, I could appreciate how anyone, but particularly a teenager, might not see some of these red flags. Like a 40-year-old woman, if a man,
especially
if a man,
when
makes
it's
a bad
savvy,
joke to me, I'm like, well, this conversation's over. I can't imagine she wouldn't see that he was kind of slimy.
Yet Ted and I have been friends for more than a decade.
Yes, good dudes, backyard.
But no, and Amy Brenneman, if nothing else, despite maybe being a little bit too hard on Reese Witherspoon's character, seems to be intelligent, capable, and aware. All signs point to the fact that she also should have clocked how much of a violent creep Mark Wahlberg is.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's honestly
at a minimum. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say she's also trying to guide William Petersen to not do a lot of the dumb stuff that he does. She is trying to mediate him as much as possible.
Right, to not have him add to the felonies.
At a minimum, I feel like she would be I don't know, he seems like a creep to me. I don't know, even if she's not, because they have so after Marky Mark does something creepy, I forget what, they like have a pool party, and Marky Mark is there, and Amy Brenneman is like, "Oh, would you rather her sneak around, whatever?" Which is like a choice. That's fine, like a reasonable thing to say. But it's weird. It's weird to me that she didn't also give the message like, "Hey, maybe we don't hang out with him." Not because like your dad says not to, but because like he weirdly alienates you from your friends, or like whatever.
Or I'm not comfortable being around him. Like,
he's touching me and throwing me in a pool.
Yeah.
He's cut out your dad's face from this picture and put his face on it.
Right. I also just remembered
the bracelet to say Daniel's girl or David's girl. I forget.
Yeah.
Girl. What a creep.
I also just remembered too that like the whole like idea of like we have nothing on this kid. There's also like William Petersen comes out of a meeting and his car is completely trashed, and it's like super obvious who did it. And also, I'm sure if anyone dusted for fingerprints or anything, it's not, he didn't wear gloves. You know what I mean? Like, or there's
no criminal mastermind,
or there's security footage or whatever. But instead of like trying to handle that in some way, he just goes to their house and trashes all their stuff. Like, he escalates. Yeah.
Also, did he spell cherries wrong on the note? Did he put an apostrophe where?
I think he did.
I could be wrong, but I enjoyed it if that was what happened.
Yes, well, I mean, the note left on the car said, "I popped both of your cherries."
I think it does have an apostrophe. It also, he does the forever as well.
Oh yeah, forever
with the number 4.
Well, if you're gonna do a prison tattoo in your bathroom with pen ink, you're not gonna write out the whole word.
Oh, but Joel, actually, that reminds me. You were just saying he's not playing chess, but he is my friend. Remember when he beats himself and it says it's his flat 10 steps ahead?
Yeah. That's true. That is his best move. But again, it is just funny because again, like we've watched so many of these movies, and all the other 3 I think are a lot better at like making the person doing the like accusations.
What were the other 3?
We watched The Crush, which that one wasn't hard because that guy's a creep. So I think that was just easy. That's in the text. But Sliver was like a lot of misdirection. Although that movie's weird because then the reveal is that it's not him. Sliver's dumb. And then what was the other one?
This one, then, right?
Oh man, what's that?
Would it be this one? Like, you said
no,
Crush.
there's a 4th one. It's Crush, Sliver, and it's not Single White Female.
Oh, Swim Fan.
Oh.
Yeah. Which Swim Fan, I think if we're ranking them at the end of the month, I think she's the cleverest. Like, she's the one that like she somehow makes him fail a drug test, so it seems like he was taking steroids while swimming. She like has a whole other boyfriend that's like she staged a car crash to like have him like
these girls are smart.
Well, she's way smarter. Like, and again, Alicia Silverstone does a good job too. But like, also that guy, I can't emphasize enough, that guy's a creep.
Yeah, the Carrie Elwes character in that is a vile human.
So like, she
bees in that movie.
Yes, yeah. There's the dark room. The age appropriate girlfriend is in a dark room, and she tapes a wasp nest to the like fan, the exhaust to the vent.
I haven't seen that movie in decades. Please continue. I'm sorry.
But no, Marky Mark, other than and again, I think one of the 2 most iconic moments in this movie are when he just starts pounding his chest after Chris Petersen confronts him to give the bruises. That, and then when he's in the peephole lens, he's like, "Let me in the fucking house."
Yeah.
Are just amazing. You knew Marky Mark was off to a hell of a career.
So why is this movie bad? Why did you invite me on this podcast to talk about a good movie?
Well, it has horrific reviews.
Oh, tell me about that.
That it's like our Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic scores are both in the low 30s, which are, not awful, not the worst, but low. I don't know. I think that I get why the critics didn't like this movie. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think I think
Is it schlocky or like?
yeah, I think that's part of it. I
Okay.
will say that like the ramp up, like they do a great job after he attacks Gary of like showing how unhinged he is, but that comes so out of nowhere. Like it's like, wait a minute, if you hadn't seen the trailers or didn't know anything about this movie, it would be incredibly jarring because it comes so out of like for all the other good foreshadowing they did, there's no good foreshadowing for how crazy he is. So I think that's a problem with it. That being said, you know, the rest of it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I had that thought too of like there should have been a little bit more hint. Like he's too perfect and then too unhinged. Well, there should be like, I mean, the red flags are just like how they meet and the general vibe of his old man friend and all of that. But like him himself, he seems really nice and like that doesn't seem like a put on, and it never really quite makes it clear that that's a put on. Like I think he's a little hard.
I do think he's probably weirdly polite.
Yes. So I think his character's a little hard to pin down exactly what's going on with, but yeah, I think overall, like it's, I'd say it's probably the best of the ones that we've watched this month.
Yeah.
What grade would you give the movie? Like A, B, C, D.
I mean, me personally, I'd probably
Yeah.
give it a C.
Yeah, that's about
okay.
where I would go. Yeah.
Like C minus 72, like
I think right in the middle.
9.
Right in the
Okay.
middle. 75.
Yeah, a solid. I'm going to say a 74.
Okay. Can't be mad at that.
Which
Well,
is
just 'cause
probably the best grade that Mark Wahlberg's character has gotten, I think.
Ayo.
Yeah. I don't know. We've kind of been in and out of pivoting the whole time. I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the roller coaster scene.
Oh, yeah.
It is the most famous scene and definitely the thing I remembered strongest about.
When you're like, the most famous scenes are him hitting him and him in the pupil, I was like, no, Brad,
No.
there's another famous scene.
Yeah.
But yes, that he and Reese Witherspoon ride a roller coaster set to the amped up energetic tune Wild Horses by the Sundays.
Perfectly scored, I think.
Yeah. Best needle drop maybe in the history of cinema. And proceeds to manually stimulate Reese Witherspoon throughout the entire ride.
Yeah. Although, I mean, the roller coaster's probably doing a fair amount of
Some work.
Yeah.
It is a wooden coaster, so there's definitely a lot of vibrating happening.
Yeah, like I think that's why he picked it. Like he's being as lazy as possible, I think.
See, he's a piece of shit from the beginning.
Yeah.
The director like made that up and sprung it on Reese Witherspoon.
Well, that's not cool.
That is a thing that
No.
happened, yes.
Yeah, and she had to be like, no, give me a body double. I guess they got her a body. Like, I'm sure it worked out. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird that adult men would spring that on a professional child at the last minute.
And that's the
Also,
first
the
time that's
director of this
happened this
movie-
month.
Oh my gosh.
It's actually sadly not as bad as, again, I'm just going back to this movie, but when we talked about the crush, Alicia Silverstone emancipated herself at 16 to be in that movie. Like,
Oh no.
it's more upsetting.
It's,
And the
that
guy-
movie, what happened is vile in that movie.
And the guy who wrote it and directed it said it was based on a true story that happened to him. Yeah.
In which direction?
Well, he wasn't Alicia Silverstone.
He wasn't a coquettish teenager.
Not gender swap?
No.
Nope.
Oh, that's.
Which
Okay,
means
I
he
have to look at that
grossly
later.
misinterpreted
That's
what
okay.
happened.
Yeah,
His-
right, hopefully.
um,
But the
No,
director
but-
of this movie directed Glenn Ross,
yeah.
which is crazy.
Which kind of makes me think that's where William Petersen works. like that's just the illusion of what his job, because we never really know what his job is, but he's always
Can we talk about his job for a second? Yeah, which is just like rendering things on a Mac and zooming out in 1995.
and there's a lot of
And then
mail.
going to Vancouver sometimes.
There's a lot of
Gotta
going.
get to-
Yeah,
Gotta get to Vancouver.
Gotta get to Vancouver, and now I have to go to Vancouver because I didn't drop the mail off in time, so I have to take it to Vancouver.
Last pickup was at 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume that it's because he was maybe a producer for the X-Files, so that's why I had to keep going to Vancouver.
Also, reason to malign this movie is that Mark Wahlberg changes one clock in his office and he's sitting in front of a computer that has a clock on it and has a watch. And
I think of that every day. Not every day, but like, why don't you just look at the lower right hand? What?
it would be weirder to turn around behind you to check the clock than to look at the, like, as we're recording, I can see the time on my computer screen at all times. Like,
and on my phone and on my wrist. But I checked the wall clock that's right up there.
He like doubles up on the clock trick.
that is his move. That's how he gets her to stay out late, because he puts her watch forward. It's his go-to. But he doesn't think like you have to set all clocks forward.
He's just that good at reading people. He knows what clock they look at the most. He can just like tell.
Hey, you like
His
that clock?
moves are changing the clock, bringing you to a wooden roller coaster, and then killing your friend.
Yeah, those are, and then beating himself up. Yeah.
Classic move.
Yeah. And prison tattooing himself, like, in his bathroom. Which would be hard. I will give him credit to like write that on your own chest is not easy.
Yeah, I'm amazed he could write so legible on his own chest.
You're not wrong.
Also, glad you made that reference, Andy, because the one thing I want to say before we move completely past the roller coaster scene is I definitely thought of Homer Badman. Like when they kept cutting to Mark Wahlberg's face, like his face was so upsetting in that scene because they kept just doing these like reaction shots of him, and it felt very sweet can to me.
I know the only other thing that I kind of want to malign before going on, I think it's a little nitpicky, but I felt that like all of the action and violence was grounded enough, except for him going flying 30 feet out the window to finally dispatch him.
So what you're saying, and I think we all agree on this, is the rest of the movie should have been more like when he flew out of that window and hit that rock.
So we're clear. Yes, 100%.
Because the smile on my face when he flew out that window was ear to ear. Like that, I was so happy for that.
Well, just because like there's other absurd things, like the kid, her younger brother backs over one of the hooligans.
That
Your
guy
younger
has,
brother's like 9.
Yeah, the younger brother's 9, but also that's the same guy that Reese Witherspoon attacks with an umbrella and he falls off a ladder. So that guy, like, he really went through.
He got it.
Yeah.
Amy Brenneman takes a drill to someone's hand.
Yeah, because he's like trying to reach in.
Good,
yeah, that's
to undo the latch.
Yeah.
And then Mark Wahlberg shoots his own buddy in the head.
Yes.
That's how you know the love is real.
Yeah. And then he's about to shoot her dad. What does she stab? She stabs Mark Wahlberg.
With the peace pipe that they won at the carnival.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chekhov's peace pipe.
Yeah. When you introduce a peace pipe in Act 1, you have to attack someone with it in Act 3.
Well, and I think that he even says, like, I just want some peace. And then she stabs him, is I think actually what happens. He says a line about peace.
Yeah.
And then she stabs him with an incredibly blunt peace pipe. So she had some force to break skin with that thing. Go Reese.
I would like to malign Margot, Alyssa Milano's character, going up to the younger brother and saying, "When are you going to grow up so I can ravage you?" Which is a weird thing for like a 17, 18-year-old girl to say to a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Yep. That's gross. And then I would also like to malign his weird kisses. The main character in this movie is just like chomping on everyone's head. Like
it was like Muppets kissing.
Kiss. Yeah. It seems horrible.
He kissed the way Cookie Monster eats cookies.
Yes. Yeah.
It was weird. Yeah, you're not at all wrong about that.
Yeah.
No, but everything otherwise.
I'm ready to full on pivot. Huge Amy Brenneman fan. I want to put that out there.
Yes.
I love her in everything. She's
Yes.
the best.
And also to tie it back together, I get mad every time Molly and I rewatch Frasier when he does not pick her over Virginia Madsen. Like,
Virginia Madsen also a great choice though.
I know,
if we're
but
being
her character
honest.
is better. Faye's a better character. That's
I mean, that's fair. Yeah.
An embarrassment of riches.
yeah.
Yeah.
For Kelsey Grammer.
For the old
For the
Frasier-
Rumble.
Frasier boys.
But yeah, Amy Brenneman is great, and she's very charming in this, even as she's kind of terrible in this. But
Yeah.
I think the whole cast is good. I'm a big William Petersen fan, and if people haven't seen Manhunter, he is so amazingly unhinged in that movie, and it like
Yeah.
if you want to watch like how this movie could have ended as he smashes through a window in that movie and just fights a serial killer, it's great.
Yeah. But no, I think the whole cast, like I think Reese Witherspoon was great in this.
Yes. Yeah.
Alyssa Milano, who I completely forgot was in it. That made me very happy to see it.
I'm a big Alyssa Milano fan. She's delightful. And like I said, this watch, I really felt very bad for Margot, and I'm very concerned that nobody is looking out for Margot.
If we can go back and malign the world of this movie, that Reese Witherspoon witnesses Margot being coerced into sex with Mark Wahlberg, but takes it out on Margot. And I feel like Reese is better. Reese's character seemed like she was better than that.
Right, because contextually, it's very clear what's happening. It's not like she gets a skewed idea of it. It's very clear that she doesn't want to be there, and she's trying to get out of it.
And she's too intoxicated to consent to anything.
Yes.
Like it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
All of that. Like there was no betrayal on behalf of Margot to Reese Witherspoon.
No.
Well, I think this movie, like, kind of going, it's like a weird 90s, sorry, I'm going to go off for a second. Like, it's a weird 90s, like, there's a lot of, like, feminism in the movie. Like, I feel like Amy Brenneman's character and Reese Witherspoon's character, like, reference, like, somewhat, like, feminist, like, ideas. Like, Reese Witherspoon wants to, like, differentiate from her family and go out and date and, like, do whatever. But it's like a really 90s version, I feel like, of feminism, where if you're not doing it right, you get called a slut, or when, like, you're kind of maybe fast and going with a crowd that moves quickly, you get your friendship severed instead of the other way around. So I feel like it's, like, very, very of the time. Like, if the children want to know what people were doing in the 90s, they should watch this movie.
Yes.
I feel like it's very accurate.
Yeah.
You'll never look at wooden roller coasters the same way.
What's the only like flip side to that? Because all of that is true, and there's a lot that was terrible about that time. But the 90s grunge aesthetic and the two needle drops of Bush come down are like that stuff does make me so happy. Like because Andy and I are so much older than you, we grew up with that music, and so
a completely separate generation.
Yeah,
I'm just a tiny little baby.
But yeah, this movie had had Come Down and Machine Head by Bush, Wild Horses by the Sundays, Something's Always Wrong by Toad the Wet Sprocket. Great songs.
Yeah, it really does capture that moment very well of like that music scene, and I like when they just go to the show and like you get to see that, like it's a very warehouse, you know.
The outfits are someone's wearing a Star Trek uniform.
Yes, yeah, red shirt. Yeah, there was a red shirt.
Yeah, I was gonna say Command. Yeah. But yeah, no, every outfit in this movie is incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, no, that all like it's like all of these movies were kind of weird time capsules of the periods that we watched this month. Like not intentionally, so like we didn't set out to be, but like Swim Fan is the most 2003 movie that's ever happened.
Yes.
It's fake Julia Stiles in it, right?
Yes, it is Erica Christensen.
She's good too.
Yeah.
And then obviously this is very much of that like teen aesthetic from the early 90s. Sliver, very like 90s aesthetic.
Mhm.
And The Crush also like another very like of the time 90s thing happening.
Well, also replicating Lolita and just dressing
Yes,
everyone.
while also
like, yeah.
one person's replicating, the other shamelessly ripping off while also misunderstanding.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a helicopter. We've mentioned that, I think, but like they've like escaped a warehouse party, which is how Marky Mark like ensnares her.
I also
he like convinces her to jump off a building.
Yeah, I also found that editing confusing. I couldn't figure out where Alyssa Milano and the 50-year-old guy were. Because like
so yeah.
Because it didn't seem
They're
like
on a roof.
Yeah, they were on a
Yes, go
roof,
ahead.
the two of them, and then they were like, "We'll catch up with you later," but wouldn't they also have to be on the roof? Like it was a close up, so you couldn't quite tell where they were. But if they were down with everyone else, they wouldn't have been able to have the conversation. And if they were on the roof,
No, and they were running to the opposite side of the roof.
right, which seems like they wouldn't have had anywhere to like there's
No.
no reason they wouldn't follow them if they were on the roof. Like that's the way to
Right.
escape.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe they jumped off. Who knows?
I don't know.
That was crazy.
I did
I
find
didn't
that
expect to
confusing.
see a helicopter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not expect this movie to have a helicopter. That's true.
Yeah. I don't think we put enough weight on it, but at the end of this movie, when you're like, you really hate Mark Wahlberg's character and it just seems like he can't get any worse. William Petersen flings him out a window and he lands on a rock.
Yeah.
It's
30
really,
feet away from the house.
yeah, he like throws him like he's the Incredible Hulk. Like there should be like a blah, 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 blah kind of sound effect as he's just like going out the window. It's very like, I loved it. All movies should
was
end
great.
that way with Mark Wahlberg being flung out a window.
And even though Amy Brenneman did call Reese Witherspoon a slut, I liked I liked all the female relationships in this movie. I thought, I liked that Amy Brenneman's character and Reese Witherspoon's character weren't like openly antagonists. I feel like that would have been very easy, like to have the stepmom be like, it'd be more challenging than it was, I guess. And then I also liked her relationship with Alyssa Milano. Like, I'm sure, I can think of folks that's not the same, but like I have friends that had a similar kind of like parental situation or something like that. So I felt that was very grounded. Like, that was very nice, and I like that they kind of stayed friends at the end, I guess, like after tragedy, I guess.
I think that they rebonded over the tragedy, it would seem.
Right.
The movie does get out. Like as soon as it's over,
Yeah.
it's just credits. We're
Yeah.
not sitting with like
Credits
nobody's
over
okay.
the crime scene coming
Yeah.
in to clean it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's okay, and there's still a lot you'd have to explain. Like at that point,
Yes.
Yeah. Because there were several murders.
yes,
Right.
Yeah, you
And
kind of
many
have
in
to go through each one.
self-defense, but
Yeah.
but literally everybody except for Reese Witherspoon commits a murder, I think.
Well, does
And
Brenneman kill him?
Oh no, she doesn't. She just drills a
She
guy's
doesn't
hand.
drill though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but the kid,
the
vehicular
kid-
manslaughter.
Yeah,
Yeah, the kid gets
Mark
him.
Wahlberg murders like 3 people, and then Gil Grissom throws Mark Wahlberg out the window. The only other thing, and I'm sure other people have others, but I also want to give a shout out to Super Street Fighter 2: The New Challengers, which is being played on the video game. The video game was being played by Reese Witherspoon and her younger brother when Alyssa Milano shows up to apologize.
that's when she ices
And-
her out. She's like invested in the game instead of.
And that is the
apology.
best version of Street Fighter for Super Nintendo. So that's just something important for everyone to be aware of,
Yeah,
That is the something.
which made me very happy because that game is awesome.
yeah.
I think we did it.
Oh, there's one other thing I
Yeah,
wanted.
this is an entertaining movie.
Sorry, there's one last
Like-
thing that I wanted.
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Last silver lining. I couldn't end the whole show without getting to this. So at the end of the movie, right? William Petersen throws Mark Wahlberg out a window, and he flips through the air and then lands on a rock.
He
Yeah,
does.
That sounds like a great way to end a movie.
yeah.
Yeah, if you weren't paying attention at home, that's Chris Petersen throws Marky Mark out a window and he flips through the air and lands on a rock
And
30 feet away from the house.
literally the only thing missing from that is a Who needle drop right there. like if we went straight into Who
Out
Are
here
You,
in the fields.
it would have been perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I loved? At the end when the dad threw Marky Mark out of a window and flipped over.
Yeah,
I'm so
right?
glad you
That was
mentioned that.
amazing.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I would have forgotten.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we brought that. I'm glad we got that in before the end of the episode.
Well, hey, Ted, before you go, is there anything that you would like to direct people towards or tell people about? Like you have a free time to promote or talk about anything that you would like here at the end.
Thank you. I don't. Here, I will say, I don't even know who's listening to this podcast at this part of the podcast, but if you are, find like one or two things that you feel like you can devote yourself to for the next couple of years and like do that and you will feel better. And you also won't burn yourself out and you'll make the world a better place, even if things are difficult for people. So whatever those 1 to 2 things are that you feel like you can commit some time to, I would encourage you. Things like abortion funds or immigration aid or mutual aid or like just anything in your community locally that folks need help with. Get involved with.
Perfect. Yeah. No, thank you so much for doing this. It is always fun.
Yeah, it's always
to
a
have you on.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love talking about Academy Award winning movies with you guys. Sure.
Silver Linings Playback is a production of HoboTrashcan.com. If you enjoyed the show, please rate or review it on Apple Podcasts. Hear more great shows on the Peak Sloth Podcast Network.